Hi there, thanks for tuning in. It's been a while since I posted a video, but I thought it was about time maybe we caught up with Crash Magazine because I wrote an article recently for Eurogamer on its rival Your Sinclair, which kind of got me looking into all the magazines again. From the era. Crash was my favourite. I did love Your Sinclair as well, but as I say, Crash was my favourite, and this was pretty much, I think, the peak of Crash. This is issue number 34 from November 1986. So this issue would have come out in October 86 when all the big hitting games were coming out just before Christmas, or certainly they were being reviewed by Crash anyway. As you can see on the front cover here, we've got an Oliver Frey cover. He wasn't a big fan of the spaceship type covers, but I guess when Light Force came in, it was such an amazing game for the time, he had no choice but to do some sort of spaceship themed cover for this issue of Crash. So there we go, let's have a look, see what we got. Usually a good time of year, these issues. So all the contents pages, adverts, loads of adverts of course. Graham Kidd sadly died a few years ago. Graham, my namesake, but yeah, he was the editor of this issue. Lots of adverts, contents, little review guide there, which is good. Gremlin graphics. Were they still Gremlin graphics? No, they were Gremlin by now. So Gremlin were one of the great publishers on the Speccy and of course the Commodore 64 as well, and here's four of their games. Trailblazer, which was like a bouncing ball type game. Avenger, which is adapted from some game books. Footballer of the Year, which was a really cool game which you just played like the one striker and you had to sort of like make the career of this one person. And Future Night. So lots of news tidbits. John Minson, who also incidentally wrote for Your Sinclair under a pseudonym. And here we go, boom, Light Force. As soon as I saw this review, I went out and bought the game straight away because I think any Speccy fan that looked at those screenshots would have just thought, wow, that looks just like an arcade game. And it certainly wowed the Crash reviewers as well, getting a score of 91%. State-of-the-art shoot 'em up. Actually, it wasn't a brilliant game, I suppose. Playability wise, it was okay. It wasn't any great shakes. There were a lot better shooters on the Speccy, but yeah, it was quite graphically impressive. So good game for the time. Glider Rider by Quicksilver. Quicksilver still going, which was coded by Binary Design, the Pickford brothers. Lovely looking isometric game, but if I remember, absolutely rock hard to play. So never really got into Glider Rider too much. An advert for Konami's Jailbreak. But Konami, they had a deal with Ocean, and they were releasing a lot of arcade. Ocean releasing a lot of arcade conversions on their Imagine label, but then Konami decided to start doing themselves, and it all went a bit downhill from there. Jailbreak was particularly bad. So a few budget games here. Budget games starting to creep in a lot more. You've got Mastertronics Storm, which looks like a Amstrad or Commodore 64 conversion of some sort. Thingy and the Doodars, which is a great title, but not a very good game. Kaya Temple by Firebird. And there's the score for Storm, 44%. So three pretty average games there. Nightmare Rally. Ocean was still doing original games even in the end of 86, and this was quite a neat little racing game which scored 80%. And Ole Toro. Now Ole Toro was quite an infamous game at the time. It's basically a bullfighting simulation, and as you can imagine, that could be quite controversial. No author, it's left blank here. In Crash, they reviewed it and it got 57%. And if I remember correctly, in computer and video games, they refused to review it, or they gave it 0 out of 5 because they thought the idea behind it was so terrible, the concept. But actually, Crash praises the concept, says it's original but lacks appeal. And I think actually in the letters page in the next issue, there was a bit of controversy about that because people didn't feel that was right, that the game should be promoting such cruelty to animals. But of course, with most games involving killing of some sort, it seems a bit of a moot point. But anyway, Bomb Scare, which was another isometric game. These were still proving very popular on the Speccy. And TT Racer from Digital Integration. Digital Integration guys were good simulation fans, and they made a very good biking game here. 78% for that. More adverts. Street Hawk. Now, Street Hawk had a long, protracted history. Basically, it was originally going to be released and then something happened to the game. It wasn't up to scratch or something, and then Ocean had to try and re-release it or do something different. And the original game was kind of like a Defender clone, and it was coded by Nigel Alderton, or co-coded by Nigel Alderton, who of course did Chucky Egg. Wasn't up to scratch according to Ocean. It was fun enough, the original game, but it didn't really resemble the TV series very much. And so then Ocean released this one, and actually, although it has a terrible reputation, it actually scored 68% in Crash, and it's not actually that bad a game. You have this overhead section, and then you have this shooting section here, and it looks really nice, and you can see that the game actually looked the part, but obviously it wasn't got any great shakes to play. Hardball, baseball simulation, advert for Deactivators. Happiest Days of Your Life, which was quite a neat little budget game from Firebird. Firebird, a lot of releases from them already, 64%. Time Tracks and Captain Kelly, two obscure games. The letters page, which is obviously always a large part of Crash. Just having a quick look through, see if there's anything particularly interesting. Can't see anything. Usual people moaning. The review is reviewed. Stop the cynicism. Crash cynical? Never. Starting to get a lot more budget re-releases now. I remember when these first adverts first came out, all these games getting budget re-releases. I was quite excited about it, although Checkered Flag and Flight Simulation are quite a creaking couple of games for 1986. Competitions, always lots of competitions in Crash. Crash Course, I must admit I never read this section. It was presented by Rosetta McLeod, and it was all about educational games. I think Crash really did it just to keep parents happy and teachers maybe. Oh, and there's an advert for LM as well. That was a youth magazine that Newsfield tried. Pretty cool cover there. Unfortunately, never really came off LM. I think there were only 6 or 7 issues. Not a great subscription offer. They usually had pretty good subscription offers, Crash, but these before-mentioned budget games, oh, you've got Jasper there, which is all right, I suppose, and Codename Matt, but yeah, it wouldn't probably tempt me. I think I got my subscription a few months later when they were offering a load of really good Ocean games instead. More competitions. Cyborg, which I don't actually think came out on the Spectrum. Breakthrough, Xevious, lots of adverts, more competitions. Always get lots of competitions this time of year. Winners, compilations, of course. Hannah Smith's playing tips, always a vital part. You didn't have the internet back in 1986, of course, so you had to rely on maps that were sent in and tips and pokes in order to progress in the game if you wanted to. Frontline strategy section, another one I didn't really look at much back in the day. I remember this adventure from Interceptor. David Bannery did a lot of really good adventures, and I enjoyed this one, Aftershock. That was a really cool adventure, that one. Graphics were quite good. Veracruz, the Veracruz Affair was really good as well. So we got signed stumps. That's what people wrote in their scores. Lots of adverts again. Here's an interview with Don Priestley, who wrote, of course he did Trapdoor and also Popeye, and a few other games as well. Benny Hill. Play by Mel. I've said it in other lookbacks, but I never understood why Crash had this. There must have been someone who was a fan of it at Crash, because I just found it a bit bizarre. I never read it. Right, so let's have a look at the top 30. Of course, this was voted for by Crash readers, so there was no sales figures going on here. And at the top, you've got Ghosts and Goblins by Elite, closely followed by Quasatron, or Quasatron, or however you pronounce it, Jack the Nipper, Commando, Bomb Jack, Batman by Ocean, Elite, Match Day, Green Beret, and Bobby Bearing, rounding off the top 10. There's some great games there, and as you can see, they're mostly still full price. Goonies, Jetman, which has recently been it's all been put into a book form by Fusion Books. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Tech tips, tech tips. Not worried about that. Swamp the Games. Sure, some people were interested in it. A Hewson Hat Trick, the game they said couldn't be done. Yeah, they said Iridium couldn't be done on the Spectrum, but it was. It wasn't obviously quite the same game, but it was still a really, really good shooter. I enjoyed playing that a lot. Very fast, of course. More reviews, lots more budget games. Mastertronic, and Bug Bite. And these all look like not great games as well. Video Poker gets 35%. Never really understood the point of that sort of game on the Speccy. Bump Set Spike, which is a bit of a naff simulation of volleyball, I think. And Miami Dice, which also gets a low score. So a few low scores for the budget games, but not this one. Ollie and Lissa, which was a very short game, only 8 screens, but a really good little platformer from Firebird. That scores 78%. Prodigy, another 3D game, or isometric game, this time from Electric Dreams and programmed by Mev Dink, and that scores a credible 68%. Seem to remember you have a little baby follow you around in that game. Yep, you do by the look of it. Deactivators, really underrated game for the Speccy, just misses out on a crash smash of 85%. You have to basically, you play a team of robots who are bomb disposal robots. You have to chuck all these bombs out of windows in order to save the buildings. Very easy to start off with, but it soon becomes really, really nefarious with upside down rooms and reverse gravity and all sorts of things. Asterix and the Magic Cauldron, 61%, fairly average score for that. Fat Worm Blows a Sparky. Now, apparently this originally started out as quite a different game, or even some sort of demo, tech demo, but the coder, Julian Todd, thought it looked good and was encouraged to turn it into a different type of game, very original game, and one that is also had really good graphics for the time as well, and it scored absolutely amazingly, 95%. I wonder if Julian Todd did anything else, but there you go. Conquistador by Melbourne House, another average game. Piranha, lots of games advertised from Piranha here. They're very successful. They're owned by Macmillan, or they're a sub-label from Macmillan, and they actually were going to do a lot of 2000 AD games, but something happened and they were wound up at some point, and that was it really. It all happened very suddenly, but they did release quite a few good games. These are isometric games here, and then you've got an adventure there and the aforementioned Trapdoor, very colourful game. Thrust, really good little budget game. Enjoyed this one a lot, and it gets a very credible score of 76%, inspired by the old Gravatar games. Here's the, again, aforementioned Trailblazer, which gets 88%, just missing out on a crash smash. Really fun and playable game, originated on the Commodore 64, of course. Dragon's Lair. Now, you would have thought putting Dragon's Lair onto the Speccy was pretty much a fool's errand, but Software Projects gave it a go. Paul Hodgson and Andy Walker had the unenviable job of converting this Laserdisc game, arcade game, which actually I've never really been a big fan of, but anyway, they gave it a good go, but it only gets 54%, so I think when you strip away the graphics and that from Dragon's Lair, you're not really left with much other than a very average game. Pub Games from Alligator, coded by Richard Stevenson, which gets a credible 77%. Looks like a lot good value for money, that. And then finally at the back we've got the preview section. So we've got Gremlins, is that Future Night there? Yep, and Avenger. So we saw the adverts for those earlier. And Ram Jam still going. Ram Jam Corporation. They had a distinctive style of graphics, which you can probably recognise from games such as Panzerdrome. Very intricate graphics. And anyway, this game is Dandy, which was a sort of Gauntlet clone, but I think Dandy might have originally been the game that inspired Gauntlet, but there you go, they're making that one there. And Explorer, which was infamous as the game with 40 billion locations. So yeah, 40 billion, blimey. And of that, I think 9 contained something you wanted, so it really was an exploring game, that's for sure. And Phantomas, which is from Codemasters, and the arcade conversion of Shaolin's Road there on the Edge. More games here in the form of, is that the follow-up to Fist? Or Novice Fist? Well, yep, Fist 2, so that's the follow-up to Way of the Exploding Fist. Now, I love Way of the Exploding Fist. I think it was a very pure game, and I think once they tried to expand it out, it didn't really work. Some people like Fist 2, but I wasn't a big fan of it. I remember being a bit disappointed. And then you've got Qua there, which was a great little adventure stroke comic strip game. And 2000 AD here in the form of Rogue Trooper, which was Piranha. We saw the advert for that earlier. Really nice little isometric game, which I think in the next issue scores 79% or something like that. And finally, we've got a preview of the Sacred Armour of Antiriad and Twice Shy, which I think is another Ram Jam game. Yep, another Ram Jam game, so you can tell similar sort of graphics there. So there you go. There's Crash issue 34 from November 1986. A whole pound would have bought you those 164 pages of Crash loveliness. Thanks for tuning in, and I will post another video a bit sooner, hopefully this time. Thank you. Bye.